TFNN.
What's going on, everybody? Happy New Year. We're in 2025. Hope man, it feels like it was a weekend, but I know it's Thursday. Feels in the head like it is a Monday, though for sure. I hope you all had a fantastic New Year's Eve and relaxed well enough on New Year's Day. Let's take a look at what we got going on right now. The composite, we're off this year to the downside. Off about 0.45% right now, 19,223 in the composite. You have the Dow Jones Industrial off about 0.44% at 42,357. You have the dollar very strong at 109, hitting a top there at 109.53 earlier today. You have crude oil surging, essentially. Russian oil is no longer flowing through Ukraine to Europe. We'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, you're going to get a massive press up in the crude oil futures because of that. You have the gold contract up about 1.08% at 2,669. Let's take a look right now and see what the GDX is trading at. Up 3.52%. So, spoke with Tim Ord earlier today. He's again not going to be able to make it. You know, things with the holidays I know can get so stressful, but he is anticipating being back on Tuesday. And, you know, the longer it goes on when he's not delivering some of his analysis, just the more we get to go over, which is something I'm really looking forward to. Yeah, the GDX trading up 3.55% today at 35.11. You know, speaking in these miners as well, let's take a look. You have Kamiko Corp, right? So that's up 0.97%, and then you have your smaller guys here with UUU up 9.75%. Some pretty nice volume to the upside. I mean, look at that, trading at 563. We have UEC as well, trading up even higher, 12.48%. And I don't get that necessarily. I think Quad U is a way better company than UEC, but that's fine. Well, let's see the market cap. That's a good point. UEC's at 1.1 billion. Excuse me, UUU is 1.1 billion. UEC is 3.18. You know, UEC, this is all running on the back, essentially, of Constellation getting a massive deal to support basically nuclear reactors to give energy to the U.S. government. The government absolutely needs this. You know, we are in an arms race right now with AI, and so you have to dump money into these kind of things, and energy infrastructure is extraordinarily important when it comes to this. I think as well, you know, with some of these kind of more like novel, I say novel, but like new ways of approaching, like whether it's energy storage or energy creation, you know, I think namely with like lithium ion batteries or things like uranium. You know, I get nervous when the Biden administration was very good at pouring a lot of money into it. I think the reasoning they had with that is like, we need to get onto this kind of stuff far quicker. Maybe not so much the EV batteries, but with things like renewable energy or things like uranium, which is not necessarily renewable energy, but you know, it's far more energy dense, right? So you had a lot of money flowing in because of that, and it seems like Trump might do the same thing as well, at least with uranium. He was speaking, I believe it was on Tucker Carlson, about his support for SMRs, small modular reactors, which is fantastic. And again, too, I mean, the way I think about it, like, yeah, we have a bunch of oil, it's very good, but we have a bunch of other stuff as well that can really situate America as, you know, keep it up at the top for the century to come, right? I mean, that's tapping into our lithium reserves, that's tapping into our uranium reserves, and then making use of it in effective ways. And not everything is immediately profitable or immediately economically viable at the scale that it's currently at, but I don't know if that ever stopped us. You know, I'm not sure it was economically viable to go to the moon, but we did, and it has this really positive effect on everything else down the chain, right? Because you find out other things in that pursuit that benefit us. And so, you know, I would love to see a build out of our, you know, uranium and lithium infrastructure in America. It seems like Trump is not really necessarily opposed to that. It might just not be as vocal right now. So we're going to see how that administration deals with it. But as it stands, you know, you get one final pump essentially with Constellation getting, I believe it was like $1 billion or something. Another thing with Kamiko as well, and if you read the uranium write-up that I wrote in October, when we were looking at Cameco, one of their big risk exposures was going to be their mines in Kazakhstan. And it seems like that is going to probably become an issue for them. So they said today that output from its Inkai joint venture in Kazakhstan was unexpectedly halted due to a lapse in authorization from the government. This is an issue you run into. Additionally, Kazakhstan is engaging in this kind of weird thing where they're charging foreign entities a lot more money to basically, keep operations mobile. And that becomes kind of weird. And so one of the worst things that could happen for Cameco was realized today with the Inkai joint venture getting shut down. I think on top of the Constellation news, that's also probably what's saving Cameco here a little bit. But it's the compounding of this news from Cameco and Constellation is what's shooting up these smaller guys. I wonder what SMR is trading at. I'm not necessarily sure. It's off 1.9%. This is definitely going to be more of a uranium thing. One of the things that I said in the report for uranium was you got to sell on the news bumps and then buy when it kind of just traverses back down. And it does. And this will happen again with UEC, and it'll happen with Quad U again, and maybe Cameco, but definitely more of these kind of guys. And the reason for that is because these things are moving on the hype of obviously uranium being used, but that is still some way out, right? So you get this really exuberant front loading of this kind of utilization that doesn't necessarily come to fruition, and it's not like the spot prices of the underlying asset are skyrocketing either, right? That would kind of necessitate a movement in these kind of equities. So that's still the way that I approach it, at least in the near term. You sell on these kind of things, and then you accumulate when it dumps back. This isn't dump, but it just traverses back to the downside. And then you sell again on the news. You keep going, and it's a nice little strat. And of course, that changes at some point. Let's say you actually do start buying a ton of uranium and it's moving spot price, and obviously you're cutting a lot of output from Inkai. Inkai was producing 7.7 million pounds of uranium in 2024. That's a lot of uranium. So you get a cut on the global market in that capacity, but it doesn't necessarily move the spot price to the same magnitude that these equities are moving, if that kind of makes sense. Folks, stay right there. We'll be right back.